All right. Welcome. Good afternoon and welcome. This is our regular meeting of the Community Oversight on Police Practices Board. I, Dino Novello, am the chair of this board and will be facilitating this meeting. To start out, I'm going to read our land acknowledgement. The land that Eureka rests on is known in the Wiyot language as Jirojiji. Past actions by local, state, and federal governments removed the Wiyot and other indigenous people from the land and threatened to destroy their cultural practices. The city of Eureka acknowledged the Wiyot community, their elders, both past and present, as well as future generations. This acknowledgement demonstrates the city's commitment to dismantle the ongoing legacies of settler colonialism. Next thing is I'm going to ask Executive Assistant Shannon Fazio to please take roll.
Board Member Torres.
Present.
Board Member Giventer.
Present.
Board Member Pardo.
Present.
Board Member Latica.
Here.
Board Chair Novello.
Here. I would also like to recognize I see here that we have a couple of city staff here in attendance. I see Police Chief Stevens is here. Commander LaFrance is here. We have City Manager Miles Slattery here, and also City Attorney Bob Black. Next thing on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. So please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. I'm going to ask the board if you've all had a chance to review the meeting minutes of our previous meeting, and if so, is there any changes that are recommended? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes. I see Board Member Giventer.
I second that.
Board Member Torres seconds it. So all those in favor to approving the minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay. The next item on the agenda is public comment. This is a time for members of the public can comment on items not listed on the agenda. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Such time allotment or portion thereof shall not be transferred to other speakers. The public will be allowed to speak concurrently with the calling of an agenda item following the staff's presentation of that time. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the COP board may not take action on any item that does not appear on the agenda. Time allotment for public comment on non-agenda items is a maximum of 30 minutes, shall be allotted to receive public comments in the initial public comments. So we'll provide 30 minutes of public comments. If necessary, an additional period shall be allotted to public comments after city manager reports, but only if the first 30-minute public comment period was not sufficient to allow for all of those who wish to speak to do so. Okay, we will. I see there's a lot of people
Board
here.
Chair Novello. Board Member Latica has a.
I just have a question where I didn't see the 30-minute time limit in our bylaws. There's obviously a lot of people in the audience today. I'm sure they'd all like to be heard.
Yes, we'll give everybody an opportunity to speak, whether it's in the initial 30 minutes or at the end of our.
Yeah, and it's standard for all of our public meetings. It's 30 minutes, and then after that, there's city councils, for planning commission, all of them.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so this is the time for public comment. I recommend to make things go smoothly, if we could have 2 lines, one on one side of the room and the other on the other side. So. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, there. We're on. My name's Colleen Haining. Thank you for allowing us to speak before you today. I'm with a group called Indivisible, and I've lived in Humboldt County and worked here for over 40 years. And I want to just tell you a really brief story that I think will demonstrate the need for why we're all here today. I observed a woman giving testimony in Minnesota to officials there, and she wanted to express her experience being in detention with ICE. She was following an ICE vehicle in her vehicle, and they stopped, jumped out, and ran to her vehicle, asked her why she was following them. And as she was hemming and hawing, they sprayed her with pepper spray through the little bit of window that she had down. And then they went back to their car, and then 5 of them jumped out, ran back to her car, which was stopped, and broke all her windows and pulled her and her partner out of their vehicle and took them to a detention center where she was held for 9 hours in a very small cell packed with women, men, and children, and a row of these cells. And the ICE agents were in the corridor in front of all the cells, taunting and swearing and making demeaning comments to all the people in there. She said there was just constant noise, people crying, begging, pleading, children crying for their mothers. And it just made me sick. And it amplifies the reason why we're here, that we would like to have some police, both cooperation and consideration if ICE was to come to Humboldt County, and that we need to have some communication in order to ensure that that kind of thing doesn't happen. So I appreciate you hearing me out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there. Bear with me. I'm very nervous and not used to speaking in public. I'm also with the group Indivisible. I've been living in Eureka for about 33 years. My children are born and raised here. They both have Hispanic last names, but they're as American as can be. Right now, I consider what ICE is doing across our country as domestic terrorism. They're terrifying our people, and it's being allowed by the administration. I'm a daughter of law enforcement. My father is retired LAPD, lieutenant too. I was raised that you would, from early on, and not just from him, but all of us are taught as women, you never get in a car with a man that you don't know, someone that's masked. It would be terrifying. And we clearly have endless stories of violence, rape. It just goes on and on. Beatings of Americans and immigrants in our country. And so I'm here to respectfully ask that we start a very proactive, positive conversation with the EPD so that we can get an understanding as the Eureka community and Humboldt County as a larger community, what we can expect from the EPD and how will they protect us as a community. I've heard just recently through a tweet that we should all be carrying our papers. What does that mean? This is the United States of America. And so I wouldn't even know, if I go traveling to another country, you keep your passport as a prized possession and you hide it. These are things you don't want someone to just get a hold of. I can't tell my kids, walk around with your passport. Well, that's just insanity. My kids have Hispanic last names. Are they going to get pulled over just because they have a Hispanic last name and then get taken away and sent off to some detention center to be terrorized and treated just, horrifically? If anyone's watching the news, they're seeing this stuff happen day in, day out, all day long, and it is terrifying. So I really just want to know what the Eureka Police Department plans on doing for us. Communicate with us. Tell us what we can expect from them. I want to work with them in a very positive way. I respect them, and I want them to respect us and help our community. So I was happy to hear and learn about this board. I didn't know about it till recently. So I appreciate you guys being here and being able to speak for us. And I hope that you carry all our messages back to the police department and then come back in some way to tell us what their plans are. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, board members. I have handouts, one for all of you. My name is Glenn Caldwell. I'm a Humboldt County resident, property owner, and taxpayer. First, I want to sincerely thank the Eureka Police Department and its patrol and bike officers for keeping everyone safe during anti-ICE protests here. I'm grateful to you for citing aggressive drivers who've tried to intimidate peaceful protesters. Your effort to protect people and de-escalate dangerous situations are noticed and greatly appreciated. The protests will continue to grow in size and frequency because of what we are witnessing at the national level. It's illegal and horrific. Before federal ICE thugs show up in Eureka, it's time for local preparedness and accountability. In Minneapolis this month, federal ICE agents have fatally shot 2 U.S. citizens, sparking ongoing national protests about how federal officers are engaging with both civilians and observers. Independent analysis shows one of the protesters in Minnesota being sprayed with chemical agents, tackled, and then shot and killed while on the ground as bystanders looked on, senselessly killed for trying to record and protect others. So I want to ask this board, what will Eureka Police do if masked ICE officers show up here, knock down peaceful protesters, pepper spray their faces, and pistol whip them in front of the county courthouse for recording federal actions? Will Eureka PD stand by? Will they protect the people of Eureka? Will they arrest federal agents for assault? We need specific recommendations from this board to ensure that peaceful protests and recording of actions of law enforcement are protected, that any use of force is lawful, proportionate, and transparent, that there are clear protocols for how Eureka PD will intervene, document, de-escalate, and protect the constitutional rights of all residents, and that there will be public accountability if those protections fail. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Krista Boardman. I've been volunteering with Centro del Pueblo. I wanted to ask if this board is determined to build trust and make sure that you are being transparent and accountable with EPD. What are real, tangible, concrete ways that you are building trust with migrant communities? We also want to know, Trump has recently said that he expects local police to be protecting ICE officers from citizens. I would expect the opposite. And how are we ensuring that crime scenes are not going to be contaminated and that we can do full investigations of any crimes that happen from federal officers? I see Jacob is here from CARE. I think that is a great program, and I would love to see more of that, and I would love to see that expanded for the migrant community. And not on behalf of Centro del Pueblo. I also would like to see major oversight on any drone usage. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, I don't know if you can hear me. Is there a way to turn the volume up on this?
We can hear
Okay,
you.
all right. My name is Chris Will, and I'm a resident of Humboldt County for the last 10 years. I had a career for 35 years in healthcare, and what's been happening in Minnesota has been quite emotional, I think, for many of us because of that connection. I want to thank you all for your public service at this frightening time in our nation's history. We are very grateful to you. Few communities have community oversight on police practices boards like you. And also a huge thank you to our Eureka Police Department for their helpful professional ways of law enforcement at the many local protests in 25 and 26. They've done an amazing job.
In my lifetime, I have lived through many national disasters, but this is the worst that I could ever imagine. People are dying in U.S. concentration camps unseen, and people are being executed on our streets for all to see. All of this destruction is by a federal, heavily armed, private army of the President of the United States called ICE. ICE is a rogue band of lawless, masked, nameless men breaking into homes, vandalizing cars, beating, kidnapping, killing unarmed citizens and non-citizens, sent by Trump to further his authoritarian plan. This is domestic terrorism, not law enforcement. We are here today to ask you and the police department to work out police policies now with our suggestion to help protect us all from the crimes of ICE when they arrive. Hopefully, ICE criminals will be prosecuted, and in the end, our country can return to decency, humanity, and the rule of law. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Annie Fricky. I've been a Humboldt County resident for over 20 years, raised my family here. And I just want to say that we have seen repeatedly the havoc and destruction that federal agents are reaping on communities like Minneapolis. And I'm asking this council to ensure that the Eureka Police Department receives proper training and guidance on how to safely and efficiently fend off masked and untrained federal agents when they come into our community. I ask that when they do, the EPD does not side with these agents, but they are community members. We are the ones sending our children to school with their children, the ones serving them at restaurants, harvesting food they buy at the farmer's market and local stores, the ones treating their wounds, fixing their cars, teaching their children, sitting next to them at Cal Poly games and in line at the county fair. We, other community members, they took an oath to serve and protect, and we asked this council to please advise the EPD on policies like verifying the identity of federal agents at the scene of suspected immigration enforcement actions, capturing the verification process on body cameras to ensure transparency, issue guidance for how the Eureka Police Department should enforce California's no mask law, and to ensure that the Eureka Police Department acts accordingly and properly to keep the members of this community, the one they live in every day, safe and free from assault by these reckless, ill-trained, violent federal agents. And I just want to add also that I think that this is a conversation that we need to continue to have, and I really appreciate being here, and I appreciate you all allowing us to be here. I know you meet quarterly. If it's within your power, maybe we can have a conversation before the next meeting, and at a time when more working class families can show up. So I appreciate you, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your important work. My name is Jeffrey Robinson. I am a plumbing contractor. Thank you. And I have 2 employees, and I'm also a member of the Humboldt County Democratic Central Committee. So I've been aware that there's actually a lot of people who want to go around kidnapping and killing brown people that aren't just ICE. And the fact that ICE is concealing their identity provides an opportunity and cover for these rogue individuals. So I kind of want to breach that because I feel like we need to be ready with a means by which we can identify individuals who seem to be ICE officers out in the street. Not that the ICE officers themselves are behaving immaculately, but at least as far as we know, whether they're alive or dead after they apprehend somebody, we're able to catch up with them. We haven't heard about people disappearing yet, but there is, across the country, places where people have been imitating ICE officers. And this presents a serious problem because they can just kidnap people and there is no accountability whatsoever. They're just going to die or go into slavery. So what I'm hoping for is that there can be some procedure by which the EPD can respond to calls by concerned citizens in order to identify whether or not someone is actually a federal agent. What is their name? Where is this person being taken to? in order to prevent kidnappings and killings that could come alongside invasion by the federal government. So yeah, it's my hope that when ICE comes, if they come, that we'll be able to have some means by which the EPD can independently identify each of the agents that are in our community, and some way by which a citizen calling who's concerned about it would be able to identify whether or not the kidnappers are ICE kidnappers or vigilantes. Because in general, we might be able to at least find the body of the person who was taken by ICE. But if it's a vigilante, all bets are off. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Cameron Petrie. I'm a Eureka resident. And like Alex Preddy, I am a nurse. My wife's name is Yasmin, and like Alexander Hamilton, she is an immigrant. We have put together some specific asks. So if you could hand this paper, I would like to speak more generally with 2 asks for the Eureka Police Department. And I'm only asking because I do trust you. This trust has been earned due to the respectfulness and professionalism that we've seen in the protests, of which there has been many this year. Thank you, guys. I have this trust in the Eureka Police Department because they are members of our community, not sent from somewhere else. But most of all, I have trust in you, the Eureka Police Department, because you operate under the constrictions of the Constitution, specifically the 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendments. That is my greatest source of trust in local law enforcement, that they operate bound by these rights and not under the loopholes of being a national security agency. So these are my asks: that you will protect the constitutional rights of this community, even if the violators are government agents that are uniformed and armed. I'm aware this is not a small ask. People will say, ICE, they're just getting criminals off the street. We all want that. The writers of the Constitution, I'm sure they wanted less crime in their communities. But in my reading, the Constitution, of utmost and greatest priority for them was preventing abuse and violence by the government, by the state. I ask that EPD have that same priority as they did. I understand it's we kind of arrived at an unthinkable moment that maybe we'd be on the other side, police and federal agents would be on opposite sides. So I'm aware of that. And it's hard to think that could actually be happening. But I will say that you have seen what we have seen. We have all seen it. Denial will not save a life. Preparation will. I urge Eureka Police Department to put into policy prior to federal agents arriving.
Can you please address the board, please?
Oh, sorry. Thank you. What they will do. My second ask is to protect the dignity of all members of this community. Dignity is innate, not bestowed by what a piece of paper does or does not say. In other words, an unalienable right. The Constitution has been called a living document. I got one more paragraph, I'm sorry.
Thank you, but your time's up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm short. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Carmen Elena Lanunciata Monge, and I'm a resident here in Eureka. Although I am a citizen of the United States, I am not a birthright citizen. And neither are the members of my family. This is an issue that is impacting me personally. It's impacting my community personally. And I hadn't really planned on speaking. In an interview with Sheriff Hansel a while ago, he mentioned that he could not legally inform the community when ICE was present in town, should that ever happen. And I guess one of the things that I'm hoping is that, we have federal agents around the country who are breaking the law. So I'm really not interested in what the police can legally or not legally do. I'm really hoping that they can step out of their comfort zone. And I guess if, federal agents are breaking the law, maybe they can too, and they can warn us about what's happening should they come to town. My family lives in a sanctuary city where federal agents are running rampant. And so I worry about my family. I worry about my community. I know that this council can only do so much in terms of what they ask of the Eureka Police Department. But I'm hoping that we can ask for some level of transparency, which might mean that, they go above and beyond the law, since that's what federal agents are doing, which is a lot to ask for, but there I am. All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Gina Willis from Eureka. You've heard today from so many people in the community who've talked to you about how scared they are, how worried they are, and frankly, how uncertain they are about what they can expect from our law enforcement authorities. And I think really a lot of what we're looking for is some clarity. And what we want really is for this board, especially since you have some new members coming on, to take a close look at the charter that in that law that the city passed to create this board. And it really gives you considerable powers that I don't know you've really used yet. It could be that maybe until now you never thought there might be a time when you would even need to advise our police department on how to handle it when a federal agent actually breaks a state law right in front of a police officer. But frankly, I would never want any of our hardworking police officers to be placed in a situation where they didn't have the guidance, the training, and the support from the city government and the community so that they know what's expected of them in a situation. I mean, we would never put them in those situations every day. Also, I feel that while our police department would have no trouble at all arresting a protester for malicious wounding, assault, homicide, any of those things, would have no trouble making an arrest and enforcing the law against a protester, I have serious doubts about whether they feel confident in what their limits of their powers and authorities really are if a crime is being committed by someone who happens to be wearing a federal uniform. Because even though those officers have some limited immunity, it is limited and, it's conditional. And that immunity ends if they start committing crimes against the population. Our officers are sworn to protect us and to serve us. So what we're saying essentially is we need to know now. These crimes are happening now throughout the country. It's no longer a hypothetical. We can't pretend it will never happen here or that we don't need to prepare. We have a law in the books right now about masking. And I know it's under court review, but that's no reason why you couldn't recommend that preparations be made as to how it will be enforced or even whether it will be enforced. So please take a look at your powers, and I would just encourage you to not just be bystanders, not just join the protests as some of you have, and I'm grateful for that, but to be active and use every bit of the powers very robustly that the city has given you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Brian Terry. I am a 37-year-old Roman Catholic nurse who would myself stop at nothing to help someone if I saw them being brutalized and shoved down by large armed men. And so what I saw this week in our country terrified me and my family because I feel stuck between a sense of duty as an American to protest these atrocities and the need to keep myself safe. And that's a rough position to be in that I don't think any of us thought that we'd see in our lifetimes 10 years ago. I think that this would have felt unheard of, and here we are. And I can't really myself fathom what the local law enforcement must be thinking about what might be expected of them and what they're supposed to do in their position. I know it must feel impossible for them. So I think really what I'm here asking is for communication, for what we can expect, what the Eureka Police Department expects of the community members who are protesting to do to keep ourselves safe as we need to do. Because when I first moved to Humboldt, one thing I was told repeatedly, the one thing everyone in Humboldt County has in common is that we all love to protest. And I think seeing people out in front of that courthouse every day for the last 15 years like I have really brought that point home to me. There are going to be protests on both sides. And we really need to know what we can do to keep ourselves, keep each other, keep our community members safe. Because, like it was said previously, a beautiful thing about Humboldt is that we live in a bubble, but we can no longer pretend that this is not going to come here. And we need to be prepared, because I think a lot of people in our community are afraid that this will escalate. And like everyone else, I have the list that we wanted you guys to hear us out. We've passed it around, so I'll spare you. But I think just what's really important to us as a community is communication between us and law enforcement so that we're all on the same page and we know what to expect of each other. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Linda McDaniel, and I live in Eureka, and I appreciate being here today. And I am here today to help find a path forward for public safety. I borrowed that phrase from the International Association of Chiefs of Police, who have called on the White House to convene a federal, state, local summit on how to find a path forward. So they recognize that we must do something. I already appreciate what the EPD does for our community, and now I want to help guide how they keep our community safe from unlawful federal intervention. I respect the EPD's need to support legitimate federal law enforcement, but I've heard those two words, law enforcement, misused dozens of times over the past few weeks. It is not about supporting agents who are breaking the law. It is not about agents writing their own DIY warrants. It is not about causing physical harm to peaceful protesters. What I want this city board to do is help the EPD establish a plan for how to protect our community from federal agents' overreach and law breaking. For example, treat any 911 call requesting help due to actions by federal law enforcement in the city as a priority 1 call, and LAPD is doing this. And also issue guidance to EPD that if a crime is committed by anyone, EPD must follow its protocols to secure the scene, collect evidence, investigate, and not allow any evidence to be removed, tampered with, or destroyed even by the FBI. No one is above the law, including federal law enforcement, when they break the law. We need the EPD to protect us against unlawful actions as they have sworn to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Pat Hansler. I live in Eureka, and I'm a nurse at St. Joe's Hospital. I want to reiterate, I wish I could reiterate everything about ICE and their assassinations, but they're also kidnapping people. And I found out from the supervisor at St. Joe's that security is going to let ICE in. Do you know how many brown patients that we have and brown employees we have? They're just going to let them in. HIPAA is not going to save them, but I'll tell you something, the nurses are going to step in front of them. And if we get beat or shot, let's just hope that EPD can save us. And that's another thing. ICE, they kidnap people. They take people without warrants, and the cops don't do anything. They may stand in a line so that, the protesters and ICE don't mingle, but they don't do anything.
if ICE is doing something illegal, taking people off the streets without a warrant, taking people in their underwear, gassing little babies, please, we need EPD to do something for these ICE people because they are not doing anything illegal. And they also are incredibly immoral. Free Palestine.
Okay. I also wanted to remind, as true with other city meetings, if you could please hold off on your applauses. We just want to make sure that people feel safe in sharing what they share. So you're welcome to wave your hands, which is applause in sign language, or you could, do a finger snap. So I'd appreciate that from the audience.
My name is Laura Julian. I've been a resident of Humboldt County since 1985, and until I retired last year, I never had time to come to meetings or demonstrations or anything. I wanted to re-emphasize the point that one other speaker made. If this is truly a community oversight board, then make the meetings happen at a time that working people can attend, because we shouldn't all have to wait till we're over 70 to be able to speak publicly. Thank you.
Thank you. And for the sake of timing,
Board Chair Novello, we are at 30 minutes. It looks like we have 3 in the audience and 1 on Zoom.
I think for the sake of timing, we're going to allow one more person to go.
Okay.
And then we will continue public comments after item I on the agenda. So.
Hi, everyone. I'm Susan Edwards. I've lived here for 35 years, and I love this community so much, and I believe so strongly in the beauty of this community. And I think we have a huge threat coming our way, and I think it'll probably be here sooner than later. And I think there's so much preparation that needs to be done, just like we're preparing for tsunamis and earthquake. This requires just as much preparation. And I don't think it's just about the police force and city officials. I think we all need to come together, and I think we are a unique community, and I think we can make that happen. I think the police is going to need the support of the community members and all of these amazing organizations that are represented here today. So I would love to see a good old school, what do you call those, brainstorming sessions where the community is invited, because I think it's going to take all of us, and I think the work needs to begin immediately, and I don't think we can wait until this next meeting happens. I think action needs to be taken, and I think that we are in a unique position to maybe do things differently than other communities. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to close public comment for now, but again, just want to reiterate, we will open it again, and we'll make sure to allow all those who wish to share, whether here in chamber or on Zoom, you all will have the opportunity to share. There's also, as we go through the new business items, there is going to be opportunities for the public to comment on these agenda items as we go through them. So the next item on our agenda is community-based organizations. I see that we don't have any community-based organizations that are scheduled to share at our meeting. So we'll go ahead and move to the next item, which is old business. There is no old business that to cover. So the next item is new business, mayor appointments to the COP board. For today's meeting, we have board member Torres, who's been reappointed for another 2-year term on this board. So I'm going to ask board member Torres to read the oath of office, his oath of office.
You okay if I do this seated?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. I, Raul Torres, do solemnly affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California and the Charter of the City of Eureka, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter in the capacity of board member for the Citizens Oversight on Police Practices Board of the City of Eureka. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Torres, and thank you for all your years in participating on this board. I would also like to now invite Sally McComas, I hope I said it right, and Kenny Carswell. We're going to be appointing them to a 2-year term to this board. So I'm going to read a portion of it, and then you can go ahead and repeat. I, your name.
I, Sally McComas.
I, Kenny Carswell.
Do solemnly affirm.
Do solemnly affirm.
You guys can say it together.
Do solemnly affirm.
That I will support and defend.
That I will support and defend.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of the State of California.
And the Constitution of the State of California.
Against all enemies.
Against all enemies.
Foreign and domestic.
Foreign and domestic.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance.
To the Constitution of the United States.
To the Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of the State of California.
And the Constitution of the State of California.
And the Charter of the City of Eureka.
And the Charter of the City of Eureka.
That I take this obligation freely.
That I take this obligation freely.
Without any mental reservation or purpose.
Without any mental reservation or purpose.
Of evasion.
Of evasion.
And that I will well and faithfully discharge.
That I will well and faithfully discharge.
The duties upon which I'm about to enter.
The duties upon that which I am about to enter.
Promise myself not to do that. In the capacity of Commissioner.
In the capacity of the Commissioner.
For the Citizen Oversight on Police Practices Board.
For the Citizen Oversight on Police Practices Board.
Of the City of Eureka.
Of the City of Eureka.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have a spot for you here. And yeah, I think Kenny, you're right there. All right. Turn it off. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the OIR group fourth quarter review. I'm assuming there's, okay, so independent auditor Teresa Magula, can you please give us a general overview of what this quarter entails for our new board members?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Chair Novello, and congratulations and welcome to the new board members. Thank you for the opportunity to present. Before I jump into my quarterly report, I just want to commend and acknowledge the people both in the room and on Zoom who have showed up to speak about an extremely important issue that's happening. These are unprecedented times, and seeing community show up in this way is extremely moving and powerful. So thank you for sharing the space with us this evening or this afternoon. I will, as I do, launch into our quarterly report. On a quarterly basis, the independent police auditor, we are a team of 2 auditors from a group called OIR Group. We're based in Southern California. We review the closed complaint cases that have been brought to the Eureka Police Department. Some of these relate to cases that are initiated by the police department itself when any type of potential misconduct is identified by the chief of police or other command staff. And some is brought to the attention of the police department by members of the public when they've had an unsatisfactory interaction with a member of the Eureka Police Department. What I do on a quarterly basis is provide a report to the police board, And that report outlines each case that is officially closed by the police department in this quarter. Closed means that the chief of police has evaluated the investigation done related to that incident and has determined the appropriate findings and disposition outcomes related to that particular case. In some cases where conduct is sustained, which means that the misconduct did occur, the chief of police has the authority to impose discipline of various types and levels depending on the nature of the allegation. What I'll do is regular practice that we've determined is one of the best ways to present these reports, which is to walk through the case summaries and then leave space for any questions or comments from members of the board. So if it pleases you, Chair Novello, I'll go ahead and start with that process.
Go ahead, please do.
Thank you. All right, so our first case in this quarter, and there are two in this quarter, this is case 2501, and for anyone who is following along, the full report is linked in the agenda packet, so that's available for review by anyone, any member of the public who wishes to follow along. Case 2501, the summary here is that an EPD employee alleged that another employee was unprofessional and discourteous. The department conducted a preliminary investigation into these allegations, and we found that there's insufficient evidence to prove or disprove the intentionality of the discrimination. However, EPD did sustain allegations related to discourtesy. Those are related to their code of conduct, which requires officers and all employees to maintain a level of professionalism within the organization. We reviewed the case. We reviewed all evidence, recordings and reports, as well as letters, memos that were drafted by the individuals who were involved. We found that the investigation was thorough and that the findings and outcome was fair in this case.
All right.
Any questions from members of the board?
This is a time when the board has an opportunity to ask questions about this case. Yes, Board Member Giventer.
In the longer narrative, you refer to the code of conduct for the Eureka Police Department. In the Eureka Police Department policy manual, there's a reference to the code of ethics. Are these the same document?
I would have to check on the language of that. That might be a question for Chief Stevens, who probably knows this off the top of his head. And so if he's available to answer that, I don't know that they're interchangeable, but he would know.
Good afternoon. There are two different documents. The Code of Conduct refers to the conduct policy, and within the policy there is a section on, it's more or less the Code of Conduct, any on or off-duty conduct that could be found to be a disgrace to the department or to the member of the department. So that's kind of what this is referencing to as the actual policy itself, not a particular code. Code of Ethics is something completely different. It's a standalone document.
I didn't see in the policy manual a section titled Code of Conduct. Am I missing?
It's within the conduct policy, under the conduct policy. Then that lists all the code of conducts in there, whether there's a whole list of them. This is probably the biggest policy we have when it comes to violations and things that department members have to adhere to.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Chief.
Any other questions regarding this case? No? Seeing none? We can go ahead and move on to the next case. 25.
We have case 25-12. This is another department-initiated investigation, again related to that code of conduct while the officer was off duty. This case was resolved using a predisposition settlement agreement between the police department and the subject officer. As a reminder, we've seen this come up in the past few quarters. It is an alternative to the full disciplinary administrative investigation. This type of resolution can be used in very certain and limited circumstances. Those are outlined in more detail within the report. But the sum total of it is that when a particular employee acknowledges that the behavior amounts to sustained misconduct, that individual can enter into this settlement agreement. He or she takes on responsibility for his or her actions and agrees to disciplinary consequences. And that's in lieu of having the full investigative administrative process. We found that in this case, that was a very fair and reasonable resolution. And as I outline in the report, it does provide an amount of both ownership on the part of the employee as well as a time saving on the part of the department to find that the case is appropriate for this type of resolution.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Yes, Board Member Giventer.
I understand that the city of Eureka has an employee assistance program. Is that correct?
Yes, for all of our employees, including EPD.
Can you just briefly summarize what the what those benefits might be?
They're vast. It can be anything ranging from, marital counseling to, addiction to mental health to, it spans a wide array of employee assistance.
And what department, how would one apply or avail themselves of that?
Human Resources oversees all of our departments as it relates to our employee assistance program, so they would be in contact with them. We send out, I believe, monthly or quarterly reminders of our employee assistance program to all of our staff to let them know that that's available to them.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions from the board? Okay, seeing none. Any public comments on this agenda item? Seeing no one in chamber. Anybody in Zoom?
I see no one on Zoom.
Okay, thank you. So let's go ahead and move on to the next agenda item, which is the recommendation log. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about that.
Great, thank you. So again, on a quarterly basis, our team compiles this log. It is a summary of all of the recommendations that this IPA has made to the Eureka Police Department through a variety of different reports. And in this quarter, you see that there are about 11 new recommendations that are listed under the report Use of Force Review. I'll be presenting that just in a few moments here. Because those have not yet been publicly presented, we don't necessarily have a status yet on those, so you see it as response pending. But in the remaining, we're either under discussion or the department has accepted and completed the recommendations that we have made in the past. So this is just a way to have a running tracker of the types of recommendations that are being made so we don't lose sight of any of them. And ensure that the department is responsive, which they have been to date.
And to clarify, this is the recommendation since the independent auditor group has been involved with, right?
That's correct. So they date back to reports that were issued in 2023 in March, which is when we began reporting out to this board.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board regarding the recommendations log?
I just want to note for the audience that since the inception of this commission, there have been 25 recommendations for improvement of police practices. All of them have been accepted, and all of them have been implemented or in the process of being implemented.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Any questions from the audience here in chamber, or public comment? Sorry. Seeing none. Any public comment on Zoom?
I see no one on Zoom.
Okay. Let's move on to the next agenda item, which is the complaint log. Please tell us a little bit about that.
Sure, absolutely. So in the same vein as the recommendations log, this complaint log is provided on a quarterly basis. It is a running list of the complaints that have been, as I mentioned at the start, either submitted by members of the public or initiated internally by the department. So what you see here is a list of all of the complaints that have come onto the department's radar since the start of our work with the city of Eureka. This is intended twofold. One, it's to show transparency. The department is very committed to transparency and accountability. This is a way that members of the public can see the types of complaints and investigations that are happening internally. It also provides a status update. So individuals who may have filed a complaint who are curious about that status can see where that complaint is in the process of being investigated. The categories you'll see are whether the item is in progress, whether it was received by the IPA, which means that it is still under review by our team, or if it has been presented to the COP board, it has a date there related to the meeting in which it was presented. That means that members of the public can go into that meeting record and find the report that's related and learn more about those particular complaint investigations and their outcomes.
Thank you. Any questions from the board regarding the complaint and investigation log? No? Any members of the public wish to comment on the complaint and investigation log here in chamber? Saying none. Anyone on Zoom?
I see no one on Zoom.
Okay. So thank you. The next item that's on the agenda is the review of the use of force incidents. Just to let the members of the audience know, this is a 22-page document that is available online in our agenda. You're more than willing to pull it up and we will go through it. And so, Independent Auditor Magula, can you please give us an overview of what it is? And I'm sure we'll have lots of questions for you and for our police chief.
Sure, absolutely. So this is one of the special topics. The IPA has within its scope of work the ability to conduct audits at the request of the police commission, as well as if there is something that the police department wishes to have us take a look at, we do these reviews of special topics. The reviewing of use of force really matters. It is, as we've seen, something that is an awesome power given to law enforcement, and they require having, in our opinion, as police auditors, just a second look. It is a good practice. It is not about necessarily catching wrongdoing, but it is making sure that the department continuously is learning from these incidents, and if and when it is appropriate to hold someone accountable for something that was potentially out of policy, to ensure that the department is doing so. So let me back it up all the way to the question of what does use of force mean? A police use of force is any physical action taken to gain control of a situation. This can range from guiding somebody to takedowns or control holds, or use of tools like the taser, OC spray, and then it can move all the way through the use of deadly force. In California, use of force also includes a category called shows of force, and that is when an officer unholsters or points a weapon, a firearm most frequently, but does not fire that weapon. So it is a time when there is merely a show of the force, and that is unique here to California and to several other states that have decided that those things are also a sign of force. So our regular review here is for several lenses. The first is for accountability. The second is for transparency, so that the community can learn and hear about these incidents and to learn what the department does related to each of these. And of course, we always want to have a lens of learning. The department and community can see what's working and where areas should be strengthened. For this particular report, we looked at uses of force that happened between June of 2024 and June of 2025. A 1-year period is fairly standard for these types of reviews. We want to have things that are fairly contemporary, not be looking back too far in a way that policy or training may have developed since that time. In that period of time, EPD reported 135 force incidents, and most of these were shows of force. So no physical engagement. It's that category where an officer may have unholstered a firearm or a taser and showed it, but not used that tool. Important to note, there were no serious injuries, there was no deadly force, and there were no uses of tools like a pepper ball or the police canine. Those are higher levels of force, and the department did not use those during this time frame. We sample, as a regular practice, a percentage of those cases, and for this we looked at 11 cases that covered every type of force that was used during the period. We review all of the reports, body-worn camera footage, any internal review process relative to any case, any related lawsuits or litigation, civil claims related to the cases. In these cases, there were none. And the department in all 11 cases found that the force used was reasonable and necessary within policy, and we agreed with those findings. So I'll jump into what we found EPD is doing very well. It is no surprise either to the members of this board or to many of the audience members that EPD is frequently demonstrating strong de-escalation skills. In most of the cases, especially those involving persons in crisis, the officers used calm communication, they used their de-escalation tactics to reduce the need for using force. This really reflects EPD's commitment to crisis intervention, and that continues to be a strong organizational strength in our review of the department ongoing. We found that the internal review process is very thorough. Every single force incident, including shows of force, is reviewed by a supervisor, a subject matter expert, a commander, and finally the chief of police. So it receives several layers of review. This is not the case in every department that is a client of OIR groups. So you can rest assured that this department is truly doing its due diligence in reviewing each incident. The reviews are completed within usually about a month, which is significantly faster than many departments. Some departments take 6 to 8 weeks, others can take up to 6 months to review use of force. And clearly we want these things to be happening as quickly as possible so that officers are receiving real-time feedback if there's any room for improvement. The chief is frequently talking about the types of investment that the department is making in training, and certainly I can elaborate more on that. But starting in 26, they are adding 6 on-duty 10-hour training days. By 2027, there's a new schedule coming online that will allow even more training days per month. And the department is really looking to focus those training days on scenario-based tactical training, de-escalation, and decision-making skills. We did, of course, find some opportunities to improve. I wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't make some recommendations related to that. Again, I want to reiterate that the areas that we identified are not necessarily problems with officers' conduct or the use of force itself. These are places that we found EPD can strengthen its internal review processing. So where they can strengthen documentation and, in an ideal world, modernize some of the tracking that's happening internally. So we would like to see some improvement in the consistency of the documentation itself. The documentation is currently paper-based, and that's not unusual. Modern systems that are all online and tracking are expensive, and they take some time and skill to implement. And so that's something we recommend the department take a look at in the future. We would like to see some strengthening in the supervisory roles during incidents. In some cases that we reviewed, the supervisor became directly involved in the physical engagement. It may have been more effective for them to step back and manage the scene rather than go hands-on. However, we acknowledge that EPD is a relatively small department, and sometimes the supervisor intervention is not only appropriate, but it's necessary. That's who's on the scene, that's who needs to engage. And so we wanted to kind of balance both the desire to have supervisors supervise and the reality of the deployment in Eureka. We found some cases in which body-worn camera activation had some gaps or lapses in its activation, and we noted that in some of these cases it was appropriate for that activation to be delayed based on the circumstances of the case, but we would encourage officers and their supervisors to document why that delay may have occurred and analyze the appropriateness of the delay. Doing so just provides that record of accountability later in the game. As many have noted, even at the start of this meeting, having that record is extremely important, and noting why an officer may or may not have activated would be appropriate as well. We also noted something that is not new to the department at all. There were some radio communication issues throughout the city, and in some commercial buildings and locations in the city, officers cannot reach dispatch on their radios. Obviously, this is a safety concern, and we encourage EPD and the city to continue working together on those types of infrastructure improvements for officer safety. Essentially, the takeaways are that the incidents we reviewed are within policy, and we agree with the final determinations by the department. The department is obviously committed to improvement. It has already taken meaningful steps, both in training and its internal review. And really, we're just looking at modernizing at the edges to improve that documentation and strengthen supervisory oversight. I'm sure that there are many questions for me with relation to specific items in the report. Happy to entertain any of those as well.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Board Member Giventer, do you mind moving your microphone closer to you so you can speak closer to it?
On page 12, you refer to some potentially useful documentation assistance, which is in the report termed Blue Team. I looked this up. There's a vendor called Versaterm that markets this product. It seems it could be potentially useful. Maybe there are competitors, but this particular product, just for information purposes, would probably start at a cost of $3,000, plus one can anticipate training and implementation costs. So that's something for the police department and for a city council to consider whether the purchase of an item like this that would aid documentation of use of force incidents might be worthwhile.
Okay.
So I can
go ahead.
Typically, what we'll do in situations like this is look if there's an existing software in other departments that potentially could be used. I mean, we'll talk with the chief and look at what the possibilities are. Typically, EPD is unique and may need its own, but if there's a possibility to use what we have existing, that may be a potential too.
Okay.
And I'll also add on. We work with a variety of different size and kind of capacity agencies within various cities, and we have shared some of the types of documentation that those other cities are using with command staff, and they are already in the process of trying to implement some of those. Some of them are things like a fillable PDF with drop-down menus, so it simulates, in a way, kind of the modern system that we're looking for here or that we're recommending here, without, adding that kind of technology cost and system implementation at this moment.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Board Member Latica?
Hi, Independent Auditor Magula. My question is regarding how the OIR group went about randomly selecting the 11 cases out of the 135.
Yeah, thank you for that question. It was a bit of a process, given that the documentation was what it is. And so we went and I failed to acknowledge and thank the department for their collaboration in trying to pull the cases and then getting us all of the related information, body worn camera and so on, with respect to each case. So thank you for that, Chief and Commander LaFrance, who worked on that. The way that we went about this is to get a list of all of the uses of force. The department tracks a use of force in their records information management system. It's a checkbox that says that a particular incident had a related use of force. And so we went through all of those. The department then, we tried to determine what type of force was used in each of those cases. And then we selected a sample from each type of force. So for example, of all of the taser deployments, we selected X percentage. And that's how we came about the sample size of 11. It was not, scientific or necessarily random number generator or anything that we might do in other jurisdictions, but we kind of manipulated a little bit of the data so that we could get a sample that was representative of each type of force.
Okay. Board Member Torres, you have...
Hi there. I was just wondering, do you have an expected response to your recommendations? I mean, or maybe a set time when you feel like you're going to get a response as to your recommendations from this report?
Yeah, so Chief and Command staff are relatively quick to respond. I'm sure that some of these are already things that they have had in process since we've been working on this report collaboratively with them and presenting, recommendations for their feedback and consideration a little more in real time. As far as implementing them, some of these are longer term. So an implementation of a modernized system, that would be a pretty long-term project for the city of Eureka to take on. Similarly, recommendations around, infrastructure for radio, that would be a longer term and in fact, perhaps something that's out of the Eureka Police Department's own hands. So it really depends on the nature of the recommendation. As I said, in some of these, the department is already working to implement. So for example, recommendation 2, where we say that it should update its use of force review form to include text boxes for supervisors, that's already being done. And so I know Commander LaFrance is already actively creating those forms and having them used by supervisors.
Excellent. Yes, Board Member Pardo.
Thank you. I have 3 questions. I'll just ask them one at a time if that seems to work best.
Thank you.
The first question with the recommendations, I'm always concerned about documentation burden for the officers. I think that a lot of time with recommendations, additional documentation is required, and similarly concerned about additional training. I know we have trouble with staffing shifts, extended hours, and so how do we balance that? I'd be interested, both Independent Police Auditor Magula and the Chief, to, with these recommendations, and I do think they're good recommendations, but how do we balance the officers who already have significant documentation burden, who already have significant training burden, and we're trying to staff all these shifts? And so that's one of the things I think is important with all these recommendations, is making sure that that's taken into account, and I'd be interested in both of your views on that situation.
Yeah, thank you. I'll take that on first and then would love Chief to address it as well. For us, we're really looking from that accountability and transparency lens. Wherever we can find space for documenting, we find that is both a protection to officers as well as an opportunity for the department to learn from incidents. So we take every incident with that sort of lens. What we've tried to do is always be mindful of the size and the limitations of a particular department. And so it would be really a heavy lift to say every supervisor needs to write a lengthy memo related to a use of force. But we've tried to provide forms with drop-down boxes to ease that process, and the recommendation reflects that. As I mentioned at the top of the report, EPD is already reviewing very extensively. And so the question is, to what extent do we need to document that review in writing? To us, there's a happy medium between not documenting it in much detail and documenting it in a very lengthy way. And we hope that we've reached that balance.
Yeah, so when it comes to documentation, especially use of force, the officer's primary responsibility is to write the report, write a detailed report, answer all the questions, do all the boxes required by the state in the report itself. The review is initiated by the sergeant or the supervisor that was on that call or on that watch. So the work goes on to the supervisor at that point. One of the recommendations for the drop-down boxes and for an area for a supervisor to do a narrative right in the actual use of force report is going to highlight the simplicity of that report as far as not having to write the memo after the fact to address any discrepancies. While use of force may be within policy, there's always lessons learned. And a lot of times we want to address those and make them aware to the officer. And so the supervisor does that. And they'll often spell it out to the command staff on what they recognized, how they could approach the call better, whatever it could be, what they did then to train that officer on a one-on-one training. So a lot of times we don't have to send somebody away to get the retraining. It's like an on-the-spot supervisory training that allows that corrective action or that knowledge to be passed along so they learn from what they just experienced. And sometimes the direct supervisor is the best one to do that. So the drop-down box will definitely help with that, as well as help with the supervisor responsibility if there is an injury that requires some type of medical treatment, and the checkbox for them to remember what they need to do, respond to the scene, talk to the suspect if they're willing to talk to you, take photographs, do all that documentation. So that'll all be in this one report instead of having to write separate reports or supplemental reports to the crime report, which isn't really warranted. It'll be in a document that we can have, save, keep, and show that all those steps have been met.
Great. So at this point, Chief, do you feel like this will add a significant undue burden, or do you think it's a reasonable burden of documentation and training from these recommendations?
I honestly see it as, we'll call it a wash. I don't see it adding more work, but it's not going to decrease the amount of work either. But it will definitely be a more accurate document and much easier for the supervisor and command staff to fill out, review, to not miss anything along that process as well. So I think it's going to be a positive for the department.
Okay, great. Thank you. My second question has to do with the supervisor role. In the recommendations, it was really the supervisor should direct, not participate, was a recommendation. And you did acknowledge the small department is challenging. And I guess my concern is I don't want to push too hard for the supervisor not to be involved. I assume, and I'll see what the chief says, that we have a number of young officers. And in surgery, a lot of times the senior surgeon just needs a little bit of participation, not a lot. And so I do want to make sure that, especially when young officers are involved, maybe they haven't done a use of force type before. And so I do want to see a balance with that recommendation that the supervisors, feel comfortable intervening and participating, knowing that, especially with the younger officers, use of force can be much more challenging early in your career. And so I don't know if you feel like there's a balance needed or not, but that was one thing I took away from that supervisor discussion, was especially with our younger officers. But I do agree that certainly if they can direct, obviously that's the best outcome. But I do want to see a little balance in that recommendation.
Yeah, so as you know, and I have reported before, we typically staff a sergeant and 4 officers on any watch. Minimum staffing is a sergeant and 3 officers to police the entire city of Eureka. A lot of times, a supervisor is actually the backup officer on many of those calls because the other 2 officers are busy or at jail or doing something else. So there really isn't always an opportunity to stand back and say, hey, do X, Y, and Z, because use of force happens rapidly and they evolve quickly, and those types of circumstances need to be resolved as fast as possible to limit the possibilities of injuries both to the suspects and to the officers involved. So a lot of times that's not possible. We do train, however, as additional resources arrive on scene to a extended use of force, that they stand back and they look at what can be done instead of just dogpiling on top of what they already see, because that's not conducive to a positive outcome. So much like a supervisor shows up, then we'll start directing traffic on how to properly, get the hands out, get them handcuffed, make sure those involved are off the person. So then we're taking care of them, putting them in the recovery position, checking for injuries, doing searches, because exhausted people make mistakes. We miss things. So we have to be able to tap those people out and put fresh bodies on there, fresh eyes in there, fresh hands in there to make sure what needs to get done is getting done. So everyone receives that training as a part of defensive tactics. So no matter if you're the youngest officer on scene and you show up to a fight that's been going on, you start tapping people out and say, I got this, and go from there. In critical incidents or high stress situations, we do put a supervisor with, let's say, a group of officers that may be an arrest react team, and their job is to run the team. And they do take that role of being in the back. They're not holding a shield typically. They're not up front. They're back there listening to the radio, doing the communication piece, and giving instructions to that entire team. So we do find that balance when we can and when it's necessary to have that person in charge because of the type of situation. But you're right. There's not a lot of times on the streets where it will be a sergeant and maybe one of my commanders. It could be me involved in it just because of what we roll up on. And there's just not, you have to have the training to understand what's going on and then be able to help when you get there and try to de-escalate and calmer minds take over.
Last question, and I commend the independent police officers, very comprehensive report. And this last part about the radio communication, I think, shows the comprehensive. I guess this question more for the city manager. Certainly very concerning to me that we could have a police officer in a store with no radio communication and relying on security guards to relay that this is where they are and they need help. And to me, that increases use of force and a much higher level use of force in a situation where you can't call for help. So how can we address this problem, which I commend the independent police auditor for noting, where we can, and I don't know how easy or expensive it is, but it seems to me that's definitely a concerning finding from this report.
So we've actually just gone through an upgrade to our communications. We're always looking to better our communications. To be honest with you, was not aware of, when I read that in the report, I was just as surprised as you were. Obviously, knowing those locations and where they're at helps out with that. We can look into it. I don't know the specifics behind it and what the fix is, whether there is a fix. I'm not sure. It could be that those security guards just have something internally that can't go outside of that building, but I'm not familiar enough with it to give any real answer for that.
If I may.
Go ahead.
We redid our entire radio system with the help of the city and asset forfeiture funds we had in 2018. So our entire system went from an analog system to a P25 digital system, which was required by the state of California. Analog is much stronger than digital, and we found that out very quickly, that our capabilities and reach declined with digital services. The communications are much clearer when they're out there, but there are definitely areas in the city that we definitely have cannot communicate in. One of those being the hospital. You go 15 feet inside the emergency room, you no longer have communication within the hospital. There is a potential solution, and we've looked at this with Motorola and Day Wireless, our contractor. It's very expensive, and it has to have the cooperation of the building owner. Is there some type of equipment they put on the building, runs through the building, that then amplifies our radio system inside? But again, it's not an easy process, one, to get that level of sign-off, and two, to be able to afford the equipment to do that. Our radio system costs just under $3 million to replace all the equipment. I've had a microwave and some other equipment at one of our locations fry out, and I have a large bill that I have to figure out how to pay so we can get that station back up and running, because our system right now is only running at about 50%. So it's an ongoing process. It's technology, right? We felt like we had 25 years and we shouldn't have any issues with this new system, and things change and you see these issues pop up, and then now we have to find the equipment to replace it with, because 7 years is a long time and that equipment is no longer being manufactured or produced, and now you have to find compatibility. So the short story is, it's not an easy process to fix the issues that we are having. We're very aware of them. The officers are very aware of them. We make sure we send plenty of resources. We're grateful to the hospital and staff there, because they're always calling on our behalf if something bad happens and we can't get out on a radio. So we understand that going into it, and definitely try to send resources to help limit the amount of force we have to use if something does go sideways while we're in one of those locations.
Great. Thank you all for your responses.
All right. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, I actually have another question regarding that for Chief Stevens. Sorry. Do you know, has anybody from the department brought that to the hospital's attention? The communication
I can't say
center?
that I've had a conversation with the hospital yet about that.
Okay. And then my next question was, there was a January 2025 recommendation for finalizing the body worn camera policy. That hasn't happened yet, it looks like.
So we have done changes with general orders to a current policy, but have not produced a whole new policy yet. Yes, but I've addressed a lot of the issues in the general orders and other documents we did when we replaced our body camera system with the new system, which required an update anyway. So I've covered some of the concerns that the cop board has had, some of the issues we've seen. We do have the capability of doing record after the fact. So while it's important they activate their cameras, if they forget, we can always go back and gather that video. So I need to find out why people aren't reminding their commanders or reminding their sergeants that, hey, I forgot to hit that right when that happened. Can you go back and get that video for me? Because that's why I went with this system. It's been so helpful and saved us so many times, because in the moment, it's not always feasible to hit that, and that's part of the policy as well. So yes, it is my goal to get that out as soon as possible, but I have made the changes in the background outside of policy with general orders that people have been trained on and here too.
Okay. Thank you.
I have some questions. So I'm looking at page 12 of this report. And on page 12, there's a recommendation for a tracking system to include demographics. Is demographics not being looked at and counted and being tracked with these types of incidents?
So demographics of an individual involved in a use of force is documented within the report itself and within our records system, but not on the use of force review forms. But when the officers or the commander, the SMEs go back and review it, they go back and watch body worn camera, they read the reports, so they know exactly who was involved in each one of these incidents.
So they're going to have to go through different layers of tracking to identify whether someone, let's just say a person of color or some kind of demographics that they were impacted by use of force.
It's just a part of the review process. They're not having to go through any extra hoops. That's what they're required to do the review of the use of force, is they must read the report, they must review the body worn camera, and then they must say whether it's in policy or not in policy. So it's not just you read the report by the officer, you have to go do all those steps, and that's through the sergeant, that's through the SME, and that's through the commander level that they must do that. So they know exactly who's involved in these incidents and can pick up on patterns with any particular officer and or incidents like you're describing, sir.
Okay. So that's good that there's a way to find that and identify that. And I'm glad to hear the different layers of tracking that is involved. The other concern that I do have is, and again, it's part of the recommendation that was made, is having a meaningful tracking system that's, I would suggest, that's quick and effective, because it seems from my personal understanding, the more time officers are spent in documenting things, that's less time that they would have out in the field. And again, I would encourage the department to make that a high priority, to find a good and a quick way to track and to document these incidences. I know, like when I go to the doctor's office now, they have a little thing that where they talk into, and it's a voice to speak or voice to word, and it could just type things out very quickly. And so my recommendation is really to look at, I think this should be really a high priority for the department to look at too, especially as the department is looking at many different uses of technology that could help them to do other things. This could also, I could see finding a good, effective documentation system can make a big difference for officers.
I don't disagree, but I'll just reiterate what I mentioned to Board Member Pardo, is that the officers don't do the review. They don't write the reviews. Supervisors write the reviews. The officers have to write the reports. And so that part is something that's already built in. It's not something new for them or additional for them to do. It's the supervisors, the commanders, the SMEs that have to do the work on the other end to do the review of the use of force.
So again, any type of support, even to the supervisors, I think in this type of in this realm, I think would be helpful too. I also wanted to commend you, Chief, for considering going into the 410 shift schedule. You know, it seems like that's very popular nowadays with people, and I could definitely see that being a plus for many officers. And I just would like to know what's been your feedback from officers regarding that kind of schedule.
So we're currently in a modified schedule. So Monday through Thursday are 410s with 3 different watches that covers the 24-hour period. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are 3 12-and-a-half schedules still, or 2 12-and-a-half schedules. So it's been very positive in the feedback. We had our first training day, which the entire team one got to take part in. So you take all the officers off the street, you take special teams, you put them all together in a training day, so it builds morale, builds camaraderie, builds teamwork, because now they're working together. This was a room clearing, building clearing training day. So much like we go to any business, find a door open, now they actually had an opportunity to work as a team, get to know how to do that properly, do it safely, work with a K-9. So a lot of things we do on the fly, because we haven't had the opportunity to do training days, we're now able to do that, and we're able to do it on duty on their normal work day. So I'm not asking them to come back on a day off, taking a day off away from them. I'm not paying overtime. I think I saved close to like $16,000 by on one training day being able to do that on duty. So I think the positives will continue to come. I think they'll see it as an opportunity. And I am very hopeful that our staffing will rise to the level in 2027 that we can do 410s on both ends of the week. And the IPA said we'll add 20 hours of training to every officer every month. That is just in-house training to meet our mandates by the state, but also to cover these perishable skills to a higher level. Start in January with all the basics, and by December, put all those basics together, everything we've learned into scenario-based training, which post and everybody says is the best kind of training. One, for the reaction of the officers, but two, to defend the officers when it comes to something happening. We can show that progression, add the de-escalation, add the use of force, add the firearms piece, and make the right decisions and show the decision making on the other end. So that's my ultimate goal by the end of 2027.
And the chief covered it, but the reason for them to go to the alternative work schedule is a staffing issue. It wasn't like they said we're going to make everybody run 12s.
Cool. And again, what happens when everybody's in training? I'm new to to this line of field. So what happens with the patrolling and the responding to calls? Who handles those calls when the departments?
Yeah, there's 2 teams. So one team's training, half of special teams trains with them. The next month, the other half of the department trains. Special teams train with them. While that's happening, the opposite team is on the street working their regular patrol schedule.
So it's just split into 2.
Yeah, we're not just taking all the cops off the street going to training.
I just wanted to make that clear for everyone. So
no, those watches are being supervised and manned or deployed the same as they would on any other given day.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Chief. Any other questions from the board? Yes, Board Member Carswell.
How close are we to being optimally staffed?
If you give me like 15 more minutes and how many questions you guys have, I'll give you the full details in a report that's coming
Understood.
up.
All right. Any other questions? No? All right. This is a time for public comment to comment on this agenda item.
Hello. I'm still Krista Bornman. I wanted to say thank you to Independent Auditor Magula for your work. And one thing that I love about Humboldt is our commitment to environmental sustainability and protecting the environment. So I think switching away from paper makes a lot of sense. However, I would also like to ensure that any new technology systems that we are implementing are not funding genocide like the flock cameras that we're using. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, forgive me, I thought this was about deadly force, because I've read a couple of times in the Times Standard where people have been shot and killed, like a mentally delayed person. He was shot. So I'm very puzzled about this. This is my first time here, and this is about deadly force for the last year, and I know that there has been. I know that there was a guy who was brandishing a knife, and about 10 officers converged on him from quite a distance away and shot him. So that's my question. There has been deadly force used. And the other thing I wanted to mention was I know that they want to have drones. Unfortunately, that's just more surveillance. And right now, in the political atmosphere of this country, we don't need any more surveillance. We really don't. And if there's a search and rescue, there are other ways to do it. They can either borrow it or, and I know this personally, they can use dogs. Thank you very much.
And remember, this is public comment on the review of use of force incidents that we just looked at, that we just reviewed.
Right. Hi.
Okay.
I'm Nezzy Wade, and I too have been here, not with this particular board, but this is my first time here with you all. And the report was really good. Thank you. I was listening about the things that EPD is strong about in terms of de-escalation and keeping things calm to reduce the potential for use of force. And that there's going to be 6 hours of 10 duty days and 6 hours each of those days to improve or training. And I'm wondering if maybe some of that training could incorporate some of the requests or recommendations that people ask for today in terms of how we're going to respond to ICE and use of masks and what the police might do. It seems like a really good opportunity for that sort of thing. Also, your question about demographics. I'm a sociologist, so it really piqued my interest. And I know there's several layers to go through to evaluate that. And Chief Stevens said, well, you know, in going through that, they know very well in all the different levels who's involved. But in terms of demographics, my question would be, how do we know, the citizenry, how do we know about the cumulative demographics in terms of who is experiencing that use of force and so forth? And I think that would be something that we should maybe figure out how we do that. I know I've worked in different settings, institutional settings, where we've tried to survey things that seem logical to ask, but that have not been asked because of different other structures like HIPAA and other things. But I'm wondering how much we could maybe fix that. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in chamber wishing to comment on this agenda item? Seeing none. Anyone in Zoom?
I see no one on Zoom.
Okay. Thank you. And I also would like to respond too is that us as a board, we're only responsible to look at incidences that involves Eureka Police Departments. I know Humboldt County has various departments, sheriffs, City of Arcata, UPD, but we're only responsible to reviewing things that are associated with Eureka Police Department. So I just wanted to clarify that. We can't comment or say what happens in other departments. We can only say and comment what happens here with our EPD. Independent Auditor Magula, were you going to say something? Yes.
I was, in response to both your comment and others related to demographics, One of the spaces where this is captured as a result of state law is in the Racial Identity Profiling Act. And so that data set, it's commonly referred to as RIPA, is publicly available, and that is something that members of the public can access with respect to demographics. That is a space where the police officers of the Eureka Police Department and any police department in California are documenting every contact with a member of the public. And so that is a fairly large data set that is available for review. So fellow sociologists here as well, and those always are interesting to me.
All right. Thank you. So the next item on our agenda is board member reports.
Board Chair Novello, could we get a motion and a second and a vote to receive all the reports?
Oh, yes. I'll entertain a motion to receive the reports that we just reviewed. Anybody?
I'll make a motion to receive all of those reports.
Board member Latica makes that motion. Do I hear a second? Board member Torres seconds that. All those in favor of approving these reports, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none. Okay. We could move on to board member reports. Again, this is a time where board members get a chance to report out on things that are relevant to this board. Also, it's a time to suggest any future agenda items. Do I have any board members wishing to make a report out? Board member Giventer.
Thank you, Bob. I've prepared a personal statement.
Mic on.
I've prepared a personal statement. I believe that there is a PowerPoint so you can follow along with me, if you would be able to click on it. I also have hard copy printouts for anybody who wishes to follow it along. But I'll just read the statement. It's not very long. This is a personal statement expressing my concern regarding the events unfolding in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and other places. Thousands of paramilitary so-called federal agents, in effect a militia, have deployed in Minneapolis, Minnesota, under the guise of police or law enforcement. They operate in group gangs, outnumbering local legitimate police 5-1, 10-1, or even 20-1. They dress in military-like costumes, gas masks, face masks, helmets, tactical vests, and paraphernalia. Although more recently they are adopting more civilian-like outer garments such as hoodies, baseball caps, and sunglasses. They are armed with and readily use lethal and less than lethal munitions, including handguns, chemical irritants, and various grenades. Their only identification is an acronym and a so-called police stencil. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Department of Homeland Security, Homeland Security Investigations, Customs and Border Patrol, Enforcement and Removal Operations, Bureau of Prisons, Federal Protective Service. Authorized only with finding and detaining undocumented immigrants, they act with impunity, violently profiling, targeting, and assaulting men, women, and children without reasonable suspicion, probable cause, or judicial warrant. Sometimes citing a vague federal statute ostensibly prohibiting impeding a federal official. People have been injured and killed. Shielded by the current federal administration, they claim absolute immunity from oversight or accountability. Termed agents, they are not law enforcement or police. Legitimate police are vetted, educated, well-trained professionals, supervised and accountable to local and state elected officials and courts. Acting under the guise of police, this militia taints the reputation, decreases community trust, and engenders disrespect for legitimate local, city, county, and state police, public prosecutors and defenders, and courts. Out-of-the-way rural areas such as Eureka are not immune safe havens. Should such interactions occur here, the Eureka Police Department personnel must closely monitor, document, investigate, and prepare reports to the independent police auditor, community oversight of police practices, Humboldt County District Attorney, and California Attorney General as critical incidents. Signed this date, Lawrence Givenser. Thank you.
Okay. Board Member Torres, I saw your hand raised.
It's tough to follow Lawrence after that. On a similar vein, I think I have two questions to the chief, because a lot of this is aimed toward EPD, and I would just ask, has there been discussions as to if there are incidents in Eureka? What could EPD do? What might their response be, or how they would expect to behave? Not that I'm presuming to know which way things should go, but I'm just curious if that's happened. And probably my second question, if it hasn't, I would recommend that you do, because obviously there's a lot of people who maybe think that there are things that you can do or should do, and maybe there are people who don't know what you can or can't do. And so I think it would be important to have that information out, especially because there's a lot of expectation that here at this board it'd be something we would be discussing. So that would be my two questions.
Okay, so we have an agenda. Is anything I can let you know that EPD is trained on all instances as well as anything related to public safety, and this would be a public safety issue, and they've been trained on that. We have been in discussions about putting out some information, which will likely happen. We're going to still discuss it internally, and we'll put out that information. But the police department are adequately trained on public safety, and this would be a public safety issue, and we will definitely discuss this internally and see what the best tact is. We've put together informational sheets as well as a letter, and we're deciding on where we go with that, but there will be more information coming out.
It's appreciated.
Any other reports out from the board? Board member Pardo.
One question, one comment. It's just directed to this city manager, city attorney. Obviously, our previous meetings, we haven't had much public participation. The public obviously had requests today. I just wonder, I know we can't discuss items that are not on the agenda, but what's the policy when the public comes to us, for future agenda items request?
That's up to the board members' discretion. This would be the opportunity if they wanted to put something, if a board member wanted to put something on the agenda, for them to bring that up and get consensus on whether or not the rest of the board supports that. But it's up to the board members to determine. And we put our typical, with the complaint logs and everything else, we put that together and then have a report out from staff as well as from the chief, and then additional items are added.
Would the city manager or attorney have any recommendation, just from what we've heard today, for this board for a potential discussion topic?
I think if you have an additional topic, you could bring that up now. You could say it, and then we could just.
I was just asking if they had a recommendation for that topic, just because of the sensitivity of this issue.
Well, I mean, we can always have special meetings. The frequency of this board meets quarterly right now. I would say that, the perspective of this board, I think that the public commenter saying that the discretion of this board is an oversight board. It doesn't provide direction. It doesn't do anything like that. And so I don't know where we're going to end up after this, but I don't know if the oversight board, for some of the requests from the public being asked of the oversight board, it's not your guys' purview for that. And we've had discussions with these folks, and we'll continue to have them and find the right way to get the information out. But we'll definitely be addressing this issue as best we can. It's very limited, people, and we want to get information out there because the assumption that there's certain things that can happen that definitely cannot happen, and we want to be clear about that.
No, thank you for that. And I want to be sensitive topic. My next comment is not pertaining to this situation, so I can come back to my last comment if others have.
I would like to follow up with your. Yeah. I would like to make a suggestion to the board if we could get an opportunity to review EPD's policies during mass protest and crowd control.
So those are already available to you. There's nothing that's changed with those. We've followed those same policies since all of these things. I would say that of the communities that I'm aware of, we do a very good job of providing public safety for all sides of any argument, and we'll continue to do so. Those are all available. If any individual board members interested in any of those policies, we can provide them to the board members.
Okay. Any other comment?
My last request was, I know the independent police auditor brought up that Commander LaFrance presented at the Pasadena Oversight Board, and it certainly seems it would be beneficial to potentially have him present next time, just his experience and maybe comparison and contrasting, their board to our board, and what things he saw that were, could be beneficial here, and what things he thought we were doing that were beneficial compared to there.
I got a nod from the chief on that one. We just got to make sure that Lenny does not put together a PowerPoint.
He's got the best PowerPoints.
So if this is something that the board is interested in? If so, please do a thumbs up, and we could just do. All right. Looks like we'll have Commander LaFrance at a future COP meeting. Any other board? Yes, board member Latica.
Thanks for the opportunity, and I would like to associate myself and thank board member Giventer for putting this together. Salient and very on topic, so I really appreciate it. And I would also like to associate myself with the concerns of many of the people from the audience, from the public that made comments today. I feel like you were speaking for me some of the time, so thank you. But I also want to say that I have been on this board, I think, a little over 2 years, and I have great respect for the Eureka Police Department. I've, reviewed their actions in very many situations that have come to our board, and it's instilled a lot of confidence in their devotion to constitutional principles and to the safety of Eureka. So I thank you very much, and to the public, when ICE comes to our community, the appropriate way to bring an issue like that, if there are concerns about EPD's functioning in those situations, would be to go to the city website, or you can go to the police department, make a complaint, and that's how you could ensure that we would review those individual situations. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Latica. Board Member Torres.
I was just wondering if maybe for a future agenda item, if we can ask the chief to just talk about what are EPD's instructions as to what happens if there are phone calls about people saying ICE is doing something to them. Like what instructions does EPD have as to how they're expected to respond, or what their practice will be, because there is those expectations. People have these ideas, and I think, this is a great forum for it to be in public, for people to know, instead of it being not so public. I mean, if they're here, the chief tells us, here's the information I have, here's what we can't do, here's how we're supposed to treat these situations, then we at least will know in our positions what the expectation is. And so I think we, in our positions, help put out the word as to what our police department is doing, right? So I would like to make that agenda recommendation to add.
How does the board feel about that being on a future agenda item? Please do your thumbs up if you agree that we should bring it to. Thank you, Board Member Torres. Any other board member reports? I personally would like to commend the department. It seems like we went through the holiday season without any major incident that I saw. We had a very good, successful truckers parade. New Year's Eve I feel like it was a success. There was lots of patrolling out there, and people seemed to be doing safe things. People were caught, of course, but I just appreciate how much policing was done for each one of those, for all of these events that occurred in our community during this holiday season. So thank you for helping protect our community. All right. So let's go ahead and move on to police chief reports.
No, it's not working. No, it's not working. Oh, there it goes. It just takes a minute. All right. Good afternoon again, everyone. First, I'd like to welcome the new members. Thank you for taking part in the COP board and being willing to be here and part of this board and help out the department and the community. Appreciate that. So like we've done each quarter this year, and something we'll continue to do, is report out on our numbers on the most impactful statistics that we have, as well as our staffing update at the end of this. So in the fourth quarter, we had 5,609 911 calls come into our comm center. That's a 22% decrease over 2024. And right now we ran at a 15% decrease for the entire year for 911 calls. Our non-emergency calls were 12,324. Again, a 12% decrease over 24, and then 9% for the year to date. Calls for service, 11,486, 13% decrease over 2024, and we've seen an 8% decrease year to date. And we have a theory on this that I'll get to on why it looks like why it has gone down. Also initiated activity, 7,233 self-initiated activities by the officers during this quarter. That's a 106% increase over 2024 and 86% for the year to date over 2024. Our traffic stops are 2,235. So that's a 287% increase, 241% for the year. And then our bike and pedestrian stops went from 32 and 24 to 55 and 25, also an increase of 348% for the year to date. At the beginning of January for the new members, Commander LaFrance took over patrol, came up with the opportunity to reestablish EPD as a proactive agency. Following COVID, we became a lot of a responsive, and then with our staffing issues and being on 12s, we didn't require the self-initiated activity to be as high as it is, just because officer burnout, wellness, and just having to take care of a higher number of calls for service. So going into 2025, we changed that mentality. It took time to get buy-in, change within the department, because some officers have only worked in that mindset, and they've never felt or seen what it was like to be a proactive agency. But in due time, in very short time actually, that change began, the buy-in was there, and now it's just become a way of life. So the officers are on the street more, they're out there making more stops and making more contacts. They're making more arrests, which I'll show you. They're making more DUI arrests. And we believe this has a direct correlation to the decrease in calls for service. The more we're out there, the more we're proactively addressing things, trying to take care of problems before they arise. Less calls come in for crimes being committed within the city. And you can see here, this is what we want to see. We see a decrease in the calls for service. The bright yellow lines below the last 3 years. And our officer initiated activity is way above where it's been for the last 3 years. So this is what we want to see out of the department. This is our 2026 mission as well, to continue this proactivity, along with some other opportunities for operations that I'll bring back to the board next quarter once we get them implemented, that we're still in the process of putting together. You can see our traffic stops are way above where the norm line is for those last 3 years as well. Cases and arrest. So 1,231 cases this quarter. It's a 12% decrease for the 2024 and a 4% overall for the year. Less calls coming in, less cases that have to be taken. Our felony arrest is only down by 2 for the same quarter compared to 2024, but up 9% for the entire year. And our misdemeanor arrests are up 3% for the quarter and 1% for the year. So we're out there and we're still finding those that are committing crimes or have warrants, and we're holding them accountable to that and making those arrests. Traffic collisions. This is just a good example. As hard as we try to be out there making 2,000 stops in 3 months, we can't control bad drivers. Crashes still happen. So enforcement is not the only answer to Eureka's traffic collision problem. A lot of the responsibility has to go back on to the driver or the pedestrian or the bicyclist themselves, but also some environmental changes do help. So we're actively working on this with a new program through our Office of Traffic Safety Grant. We'll be coming out with a special program and videos coming out of that we'll try to push out and try to make a change and better educate the community that we all need to share the road and share the lanes. So it's everybody's responsibility, more or less, to start reducing the number of traffic collisions in the city. Our criminal collisions went down 33% this quarter, and it's only up 17% for the year. So criminal collisions are hit and runs or DUI crashes. Our DUI arrests are up 67% this quarter, 82% for the year. So we've done a couple special enforcement operations, a holiday DUI enforcement operation where we challenged the department to make whoever made the most arrests got some type of award for the department. So we did it during the summer season. We did it during the holiday season. You can see the results. They were out there. They made a lot of arrests and probably stopped a lot of injuries and lives being changed during the holiday season because of those arrests. And then our citations are up 62% for the quarter and 93% for the year. We have found you can issue citations. It doesn't always change the behavior. It's the contact that changes the behavior, and the interaction you have with the driver sometimes has more impact than actually taking money out of somebody's pockets. So we have no quotas. There's no measurement, no evaluation process for how many tickets you write. We want you out there making the stops, and that's what we're evaluating, is the stops that you actually make and the encounters that you have. Our mental health calls went up in 2025 in this quarter by 25%, year to date 18%. The good thing you see that's over 100 more calls for service on mental health for that quarter, but our holds only went up by 1, and they're up by 19% for the year. But our diversion rate is actually down for the year by only 0.1% and only up by 1.3% in the quarter. Diversion rate is not taking someone to the ER on a 5150 hold. So how do we take out of that 525 calls that we had, what do we do with those individuals that were in crisis, and how do we get them to the right resources to make sure they had a positive outcome? CARE, which you're going to get an update on from Jacob here shortly, has played a huge role in that in our working relationship and our joint responses with them, and being able to hand off people that they can appropriately handle, but also just knowing we have resources in our community, and a lot of the individuals we deal with on a repeated basis have resources available to them, and be able to call them directly and avoid having to take someone to the ED for a hold is helping not only the ED, but helps our community overall. And then you can see a spike in the calls for service this quarter, and especially around the holiday season. You'll see almost every year that line goes up at the holiday season. And it's a lot of times not even the people that we deal with on a normal basis that are in crisis, but holidays bring out, issues for a lot of people. And we do always see an increase of calls for service around the holiday season. Any questions on the numbers before I get into the staffing?
Any questions from the board? Nope.
Okay. So currently we have 3 officers on the field training program that graduated the academy in December. They're all in phase 2 of a 3-phase program, all doing relatively well. I have 1 officer in the academy. Proud of this guy. He started off as one of my volunteers at the age of 17, still in high school. At the age of 18, we were able to hire him as a part-time employee in our records department, hired him as a full-time CSO, a community service officer, and he is not even 21 yet. He'll be 21 like a month before he graduates the academy, but this was his goal, and we were able to use our opportunities within the department as a pipeline to get him to his goal, which also benefits us, and it benefited us along the way. So as long as he does well in the academy, I'll be really proud of him. We currently have 0 officers in background. Our recruitment, we just flew our recruit applications. That closes tomorrow. We also recruited for a lateral officer with a $50,000 signing bonus. We're hoping to get someone to fill that role quickly to add to our staffing. And then we'll know tomorrow how many applications we have. We'll start that process of evaluating those applicants and getting them into backgrounds if they qualify. I had 1 officer resign recently to go to a state north of here with his family. 1 officer failed to make probation. And I have a 2nd officer that's having to leave the agency as well due to a family relocation. So again, we're not seeing people leave because of the working conditions, because of the department. It's family related circumstances out of our control. So currently, when the officer leaves to go down south with his family, we'll have 7 vacancies. So we're hoping to fill 1 with that lateral position and then get the rest of them into the academy. While that sounds good and on paper I could be fully staffed come June with the academy, it's next May before I would see those officers from that current academy class on the street and actually filling roles and filling positions on watches. So it's not an easy process to do the recruit position, but we do find we get more employees that are more loyal and dedicated to the department, and we're able to pull them from their jobs they're currently in, help them meet their dreams of being an officer, paying them through the academy so they can take care of their families, so they're able to make that leap into the profession. Currently have 1 dispatcher vacancy. That was the other recruitment we just closed tomorrow as well. So, I mean, we have 9 of our 10 positions, which is still higher level of staffing than we've had up there in 10 years probably. We have 2 record specialists in backgrounds, 1 property technician in backgrounds, and 1 CSO in the final stages of hiring. So if those last 4 positions get filled, then those areas of my department will be fully staffed, and then we'll continue to work on dispatch and patrol. And again, those are the current openings we have for another 6.5 hours. If anybody wants to apply, please go onto that website. And does anyone have any questions?
Yes, go ahead. Board Member McComas.
Okay, practicing with the mic. Is there a staffing shortage across the country or the state? Is this just a common for police?
Yes, so since 2020, we really saw a downturn of people wanting to get into the profession, and then officers leaving the profession early just due to the state of the country and policing at the time.
Okay.
And so that pendulum now has swung back in favor of policing and favor of being in government work. So we are seeing higher number of applicants each time around for all our positions across the board. And so you'll see higher graduating classes from major agencies and things like that. And they're starting to run more academies. So it's on the swing back too. But it takes a long time once that pendulum gets thrown the opposite way to make that change and right that ship.
And then I had a second question was, what about recruitment efforts? Do you guys go to the high schools, and what does that look like?
Yeah, so we have done recruitments in many ways. We have gone to high schools. We go to career days that high schools come to with other agencies. We go to Cal Poly and put on presentations up there. We find some of the best recruitment we do, though, is word of mouth and our own people. So we highly encourage our own folks to, if you know someone that's interested, let's get them in, let's do a ride along, let's do a sit along and dispatch, see it, feel it, and get them to apply the next time around.
All right. Any other questions from the board? Seeing none.
Can I add just two quick things?
Oh, please.
My annual report hopefully will be done by the end of February. So the next meeting, I hope to bring that to you. Likely it'll go to council before then just because of the way the meetings fall, but I will bring the annual report and all the reporting requirements back to this board. Hopefully the next meeting. And then, Mr. Givender, your question about EAP. Not only does the city provide EAP services through our Human Resources Department, the department, EPD, has been in contract with Restoration Family Services, which is a service that provides the same stuff as the EAP, but on a first responder level for more than 3 or 4 years, well, 4 years now at least, because we're in a 3-year contract with them. So the department and the city has made a commitment through our budget to provide these services. There's no questions asked for all the same types of concerns that could come up in any type of situation, whether it be work-related stress, family stress, alcoholism, whatever it is. That service is available just by a phone call. Doesn't take admin approval or anything. So we've made that investment in our own people to provide that service to them as well and go above and beyond EAP.
Are all those services remote, or is there any in person?
Yeah, so they can be remote depending on who your counselor is, but Restoration does have an office here in Eureka with a full-time clinician here who sees not only our employees, but other employees through other departments, because they've got contracts now. Once we started this, I have every agency, I think, in the county on the same group with them, as well as they do our critical incident debriefs. So they're available at a phone call to come to the department and help with that de-stressing after a critical incident.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And that local physician was brought up by EPD.
Yes. Yeah. This was all a part of a program we started with that company out of Vacaville and got them up here, and it's very, very well received by the employees. So.
All right. Thanks, Chief. And it's nice seeing that those numbers are low. It seems like the office staff, that's really seems like one of the lowest that I've seen since being on this board. Yeah.
For our records?
For the records,
yes.
And all that, yeah.
And they're going through a lot of work right now because there's a lot that goes on in that office with just 2 employees and a supervisor now. So we're excited to get those 2 positions filled.
Cool. Well, best of luck in that.
Thank you. And thank you for all the comments tonight. I appreciate it.
Thanks. All right. The next item on the agenda is staff reports. We have Jacob Rosen, who's going to be presenting on the alternative response. You have the floor.
You have to jump over. Sorry about that.
All right. Good evening, board. Thank you for the opportunity to come and give you an update. In putting this together, I realized that I missed an update last year. And so I think other things got busy, but I know we presented in 2024 and haven't gotten to present to y'all since then. So this will be a 3-year update, and a lot has changed. There we go. In this, we'll talk about some of the milestones for 2025. We'll talk about some of the goals for 2026, and then we'll definitely have some time for questions. In talking about milestones, we expanded our team again. We've been working hard at that to establish a team that's able to accommodate some of our goals, including 7-day-a-week coverage, which we'll get to. So our current staffing, we have 1 full-time clinician, 4 case managers full-time as of the beginning of this month. 1 administrative tech full-time, part-time admin assistant who's been helping a lot with side projects, and we'll talk about some of what those have been. We also expanded with a intern program, so we have 1 clinician intern, and then we have 2 that are case manager interns working in a sociology department and a BSW program. It's in addition to me. I get stuck behind a desk. This is folks who actually get out into the field on a regular basis. I don't find myself getting to do that as much anymore. So one of the biggest things that changed last year is we did implement true alternative response. So when CARE first started, we were initially co-responding with Eureka Police Department. We did not have enough staff to be able to go in place of Eureka Police Department. Starting last March, we actually implemented true alternative response, where if there's if they pass a screening, which we developed with dispatch and command staff, then we can actually send our own team in place of officers. So that screening is the call type can't mandate a police officer response. So there are some specific types of calls as they come into dispatch, they get triaged. It does require an actual peace officer. It can't be another party. So it has to be a type of call that we can go to. It needs to be mental health related. There needs to be no violence, no weapons, and no history of violence. And a lot of this, we really tried to dial in with dispatch so that it can be triaged quickly and we're not adding to their workflow. But information that we would need that's critical for us to be able to go out and be safe while we're out. And it's worked really well so far. We also got access to RIMS, which is EPD's record management system. This took a lot of tinkering because HIPAA and CJIS don't always play well together. And so finding a way for our staff to have access to RIMS without being out of compliance for criminal justice information systems standards was tricky. But dispatch worked really hard with us as well as command staff to find a way for us to be able to get access to that. And all of our staff does now have RIMS access so that we can actually see the calls that were being sent to that come into dispatch. This was really a critical component because without being able to see what we're responding to, we wouldn't be able to effectively respond to it or safely respond to it. So this was a really big deal. The other piece that this enabled is a referral system. So CARE does currently only operate during the day between 8 and 7. But we do have, because we have RIMS access to the mailbox and referral system that comes with that system. And so if there are calls currently right now on the weekends or overnight, officers are able to forward that call to our staff. And then the next business day when we're in operation, we're able to review that call and then immediately initiate some sort of follow-up for that client if it's something that we can assist with. So with the alternative response, when someone meets these criteria, we're able to then send a team of CARE staff out. We always operate in pairs for safety purposes, but also just that's a best practice for de-escalation because sometimes the first person isn't going to be the person who makes the connection. And so we want the second person there. But we will be able to send them out in place of an officer. So this is taking things a step further where we're not just relieving officers in a co-response situation and letting them go back to the field after the scene is stabilized, but we're actually able to take that load off of them altogether and also then provide a high quality of care to the person who's having that mental health crisis. Another milestone, we implemented a new EHR. EHR stands for electronic health record. We were able to, our old health record system was really for a small practice setting. Toward the end of 2024, we were rapidly exceeding its capacity, especially in terms of data collection. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. But the data collection on the old system was really required manual input. And so I was having to read every single chart and gather 28 data points from every single chart, and then add that into an Excel sheet and analyze it. This new system is going to help automate a lot of that. So we started development with this in December of 2024. We were able to implement it in April of 2025, so that was our go live date. However, we just completed the manual transition of all records from the old system to the new system by going and manually pulling out each individual document and then uploading it to the new system at the beginning of this year. That did include multiple rounds of audits, making sure that everything was accurate, that everything was in the correct chart, and just because of the confidential nature of the information and the importance of the information, we wanted to make sure that we were thorough. So it did take extra time. Just to give an idea, that was 419 client profiles and over 2,500 documents that required manual extraction from the old system and entry into the new system. We also had to do this in a rolling transition from system to system because we didn't stop seeing clients just because the new system started. So we had old clients that we were documenting in the old system in March, and we had new clients in March that we were documenting in the new system before the go live date, because otherwise we were going to be adding more to the transition of documents than we would be able to accommodate. The new system is really going to allow us to do better data collection, and it's going to allow us to do it faster. It automates a lot of it. And so hopefully, and we'll get to this in one of the goals section, but we're hopefully going to be able to do more month-to-month updates at minimum every quarter. Another big accomplishment is the city of Eureka did complete some agreements with various institutions to allow us to have interns. One of those big ones was with Cal Poly Humboldt. That is a global agreement that we have with them. And so it's not just necessarily for mental health staff with the CARE program. This could be criminal justice majors working with law enforcement. This could be folks in the engineering department working with the planning department here. I mean, in any of those fields, in theory, could now intern with the city of Eureka through this agreement. That was a big deal for us because the social work department is always looking for placements up there, and we're happy to take folks in and train them and get to expose them to crisis work, which is something that our field does not always do a great job of, since first response is kind of new to the mental health side. Another agreement we have is with the University of Massachusetts and their online program. We do have a BSW student through there. And then also Palo Alto University online, we have a clinician student through there. Covered that. So we did take on 3 interns. Again, we have 1 counseling master student, 1 BSW student, and 1 bachelor's in sociology student. Another thing that we jumped into last year was Care Court. The care team began making Care Court referrals in collaboration with the County of Humboldt Behavioral Health Department. We did complete 5 total referrals for 2025. We did assist with multiple others with the county in collaborating and getting them information to support their referral for Care Court. But we actually submitted 5 on our own. All 5 were accepted and put through the system for services through Care Court. That doesn't necessarily mean outcomes. That just means that they were found to be valid referrals and they actually did enter them into the process. We've already received submitted 2 referrals for 2026. Karen CSET have also recently collaborated with DHHS Behavioral Health to develop a system to assist them in finding Care Court referrals who have been referred to Care Court that are in the city of Eureka, so that we can assist in getting them given their notices, as well as then making their hearing dates and possibly even providing transport to those hearings. So we've really been working to collaborate with them around that. Humboldt County has really been one of the few large-scale successes for Care Court across the state, and has received some recognition for that. The program is working well. Per capita, we're doing incredibly well in the referrals, as well as the people who are actually then making it into the system and receiving treatment. And it's largely been a huge success in terms of their implementation here. We've had some numerous client successes. However, we help support a couple really high-frequency utilizers get long-term stabilization and get into situations that are going to help them in the long term. 3 to 4 of these clients alone probably are the equivalent of hundreds of calls for service saved to EPD per year. Never mind the other ones that we were able to assist. So that was a huge win. We've been trying to work on some of the folks that we know have been in the community for a long time and try to assist them, especially as they cycle in and out of emergency services, whether it's the ER, whether it's police contact or the jail. We've really been trying to remedy those situations. We've had many other client success stories through either psychiatric stabilization. Care Court, again, has had a few, even from the ones we've referred. We've gotten many folks into substance use treatment. And then we found a lot of folks housing and shelter, either through Betty and her programs or Arcade House Partnership, or just through some of the other programs that are locally, we've been able to assist with that. Uplift is our typical collaborator, being a City of Eureka program, and they continue to do excellent work, and we definitely send a lot of folks their way for that. One of the goals that have partially been completed last year, we are in the process of signing on to 2 contracts with Humboldt County Behavioral Health. One of those is already in place. The first contract is signed. So contract 1 is a funding agreement to that Behavioral Health gave us some funding to the tune of $225,000 to expand our services to be able to go to 7 days a week. And that's in preparation for the second contract, which is in the final review stage right now. So again, contract 2 is in the final stages. It's the service agreement where we will then begin providing mobile crisis benefit services on behalf of the county, being able to support them and their mandate by the state to provide mobile crisis services, but also establishing a revenue stream for us by being able to be reimbursed through Medi-Cal. Some fun things. We house 2 snakes. This is something that I never thought I would be saying as a mental health clinician in the crisis field. This was 2 separate occasions with 2 separate individuals. But apparently we've identified a resource that there is someone who will rehome snakes on an emergent basis. So we're able to do that. We also were able to find a stolen car, which I didn't think that I'd be saying either. Credit goes to Tyler Jennings for that. That is an AI image of him next to finding a stolen car. He did agree to that, kind of, but that was another accomplishment. We try to keep things light. So moving into goals. Our big goal that's upcoming quickly is going 7 days a week. So currently we are targeting February 22nd. We have the plans in place. We're not seeing any barriers right now. We've been really working towards this. The staffing has been the big hurdle. We think that the rest of the system is established to support this, but this will broaden our staffing coverage to cover Saturday and Sunday from 8 to 7. And so we will have a team of at least 2 case managers on during that time. Again, it'll still be 8 to 7 with that referral system in place, right? So if there are calls that come in overnight that need to be referred to us, then we're able to get those. We get even more benefit from working on Saturdays and Sundays because the calls that come in Friday evening are now going to get attended to on Saturday morning as opposed to Monday morning. Yeah. Again, another big one here is the second contract. I think I accidentally didn't take this part out of the first part, so we'll move that. But that second contract, we're hoping that that's going to be done soon. Again, we've done our review. It's back with the county, and it's been a slow progress. For those who don't know, this has been, 3-year process now, Miles? But we're making progress and moving forward. There aren't a lot of examples of this being done in the state, working with our CareStar partners, as well as talking with the Steinberg Institute. There haven't been a lot of situations where counties have contracted with another agency to provide the mobile crisis service. And so this is one of those situations, and we've been able to work with them and kind of pioneer a new territory here. So data collection. I do have some data. That'll come out to you. Although you're going to notice that it's only from January and through March last year. Data collection got significantly bogged down due to the electronic health record transition. And so we are very behind on that. I have the entire old system closed out and completed. However, now we're working on blending the old system's data with January through March with the new system's data from April through December last year. And that's just taking extra time. We've also been focusing on all the other components, including getting 7 days a week. That's been a huge goal. And so we're hoping that as some of these other goals come to fruition, then we're going to shift back to these projects and make sure that we catch up. And we'll definitely be happy to come and report on that data collection when it's been collected and analyzed. Again, the new system should be able to expedite that just because it will automate the collection component. And so we'll just have to do the analysis. So hopefully by the next quarter's meeting, we'll be able to come and present that if that's something that you'd like. Yeah, got ahead of myself again. Again, we will be aiming for quarterly reporting at that point. It should be something that, again, should be streamlined. Ideally, it'll actually get us down to monthly reporting, and then we can maintain a dashboard just with our statistics and keep it updated month to month. That's kind of my dream, is to be able to do something like that, just for the transparency of the program. But our goal will be at minimum quarterly reporting. Another goal is implementing client satisfaction survey. This is something that's a best practice in our field. It's another way to also gather data for the program. So if we don't know what clients are experiencing when they go through our services and what feedback they have, then we're not able to pivot and make things more client-centered. And so it's not something that we have yet. It can be tricky in crisis situations to get that feedback, especially when a lot of what we end up working with revolves around involuntary detainment. Turns out a lot of folks don't have great feedback when they're being involuntarily detained, which makes sense, right? And so being able to at least get that data though and start looking through it may be able to improve how we do that and what sort of services we provide when that happens. So that is something that we want to kind of unpack. It's been on the to-do list for a long time, and this year I think is when we'll be able to get to it. It'll help us adjust care and policies and procedures to be more sensitive as well. Once those things are in place, my plan for the program is to take a strategic pause. We have done a tremendous amount of growing in the last 3 years, going from having myself and 2 case managers to having a staff of 6.5 at this point, and going from operating 8 to 5, maybe 6, 5 days a week to now being 8 to 7, and by the end of February that'll be 7 days a week. So we've had a lot of growth, and especially then with the implementation of being able to bill through Medi-Cal with the county contract, we're really going to want to take a pause and stabilize kind of our growth curve, and then see where we're at, because we need to establish that baseline. We need to establish the baseline and see what kind of revenue we're pulling in. We need to establish the baseline and see what our stats are, what the demand continues to be, and kind of where to go next. And so we definitely have a lot of growth still to do to get to this pause, but that's kind of the current plan at that point. It doesn't mean that if there are golden opportunities, we won't take them, but that we would definitely want to work toward a baseline at that point. Yeah. In that pause, we would go for roughly a year, just to, again, get a year's worth of data that we can then sit with and kind of establish as a baseline. And that's it. Yeah, I'm happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions from the board? Yes, Board Member McComas.
Are you going to be increasing your staff with that second contract with the mobile, or are you going to be able to?
So the first contract was to increase our staff for the second contract. Yeah. It was just cleaner to separate a funding contract and a services contract instead of trying to combine everything. Yeah. Yep.
Any other question from the board? Yes, Board Member Pardo.
It's more of a comment than a question. Jacob, obviously your leadership reflects the success of this program, so I commend you, and I commend the city for funding this program. Obviously a very impressive presentation. Your data, I especially impressed by the law enforcement time saved category, 49 hours in a quarter, when we're dealing with the staffing crisis for the police is really impressive. And also the hospital's under a lot of duress, mental health clogs the ER, and your total crisis account is diverted from 5150 of 81. That's another very impressive. And then the last question, I guess, is the A rate among clients. That word, I didn't quite, I hadn't seen that before.
Anosognosia.
Yeah, thank you for pronouncing it.
Yeah. Anosognosia is the symptomatic loss of insight. So when folks who have severe mental illness, like bipolar disorder or schizophrenia, just become symptomatic when they enter into an episode of those symptoms occurring, one of the symptoms can often be the loss of the ability to self-reflect or have that insight. And so if I start to have trouble breathing, I'm probably going to sense that I have trouble breathing, right? My body's going to react to that. My brain is going to understand that phenomenon. However, the brain's job is to do that. So what happens when the brain gets sick, right? When the brain gets sick, it can lose the ability for that insight to develop. And so unfortunately, a lot of folks with bipolar disorder and schizophrenia, when they're having severe episodes of symptoms, will lose the ability to recognize they're having those severe levels of symptoms. And we see that that quarter was high. I think we were in the 40% there for that quarter, but we've held a pretty steady rate of 33 to 35% of rates of anosognosia amongst our client population.
Yeah, and the last question I have is obviously safety is paramount, and there's always that gray zone. Should it be the police? Should it be the mental health crisis team? Have you seen any significant safety challenges, or have you been able to work with the police and sort of find that sort of safe on each side of that gray zone there?
Eureka Police Department has been an amazing partner in that sense. They've been very protective of our staff and have been very progressive, even in terms of like policies and procedures and how we develop these things. The dispatch policy for triaging the alternative response calls, even going back to when CARE first started, one of the policies was that our staff would be the ones who dictate whether or not police leave a scene when we arrive and are working with a client, barring a critical incident, of course, where resources need to move quickly, but that really goes to show their trust in us, that we're going to let them go when we feel safe in letting them go, but also making sure that our staff can stay safe and do the things that we need to do. We do respond to a number of folks who are in the danger to others category. It's usually our lowest category, fortunately, but we do respond to those. Those are often co-response. That's not something where we're going to get that alternative response dispatch. It's also incredibly beneficial to work in the same building as CSET, the Community Safety Engagement Team. And so when we need to consult, it's a hallway away and we're in their side and we're able to work with them. And vice versa, if they see something where maybe there's some level of threat that they may need to attend to, but they see a mental health component of it, they're able to come and get us. And we've developed an incredible working relationship between the two. There have been a few safety incidents. Team got taken hostage-ish for about 20 seconds, but then they were able to de-escalate that person and the door was unlocked and law enforcement was allowed in. And so it's, we've made it a New Year's resolution that that's not allowed anymore. It certainly did not get out of hand in that circumstance. But I mean, this stuff does come up. Another precaution that we do take for that situation, though, is our team is tied into police radio. And that makes it really easy to either hit the panic button or request officer support really quickly. We don't need to fumble with the phone. We don't need to wait for the phone to ring and get a hold of dispatch. It's really instantaneous, and they come and check on us very quickly when those situations arise.
Yeah, and thank you again for your work. This is obviously really important for the community, so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Your team.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question. Can you describe a situation where your team was involved with EPD that it ended out and it turned into a good positive outcome, whereas if it wasn't for the support that your team provided, it may have changed the outcome a little bit?
Gosh, which one? I mean, part of me goes to a situation we're at yesterday. I won't go into great details. It's pretty fresh. But we had a very suicidal individual who called our team and had access to means, definitely had intent, and was very heavily intoxicated, which puts them at risk. And in this situation, it was really through that teamwork with Eureka Police Department and our team that we were able to de-escalate this person and have a safe resolution. It really was a close situation that was very intense, and this person very well could have died as a process. But because of that teamwork and the expertise that EPD demonstrates on a consistent basis, we were able to collectively help this person and get them safely to the hospital.
Cool. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for the support. Any other questions from the board? No? Thank you for sharing, and yeah, again, commend your staff for us.
Will do.
Great
Thank
work.
you. Thank you.
Miles, do you have any reports on
I
your
can
end?
never follow that. Sorry, you guys.
And so you won't, I guess. So the next item, I wanted to bring back public comment for non-agenda items. If there's anyone here in chambers who didn't get a chance to speak earlier today, you have an opportunity to speak. So seeing none, anybody on Zoom?
I see no one on Zoom.
Okay. Thank you all for coming and thank you, Eureka Police Department, for the information, for staff. Great work. Thank you to our new board members. We look forward to working with you in the future. So, meeting adjourned.